Hey guys, Spirit of the Lie here. In this video, we're going to look at late game cavalry rating. In particular, how important is the Hussar upgrade within that context. Being raided by Hussar in Imperial Age is incredibly annoying to deal with, as they're hard for melee units to chase down, and even static defenses like town centers and castles seem to take a long time to clear them out. With that said, nearly half of civilizations don't have Hussar, so players often resort to using Light Cavalry instead. But how does the effectiveness of Light Cavalry actually compare in that role? And for that matter, exactly how important are bloodlines, defensive armor, and even the attack upgrades at this sort of late game villager rating? Obviously, the more upgrades you have, the better, but here we're going to be teasing apart those differences and rating the rating techs, as it were. To start with, notice Hussar gives only a very modest improvement over the Light Cavalry stats with just plus 15 HP. That's less than the effect of Bloodlines, but comes at roughly 4 times its cost. There is a very subtle hidden benefit here that Hussars attack 5% faster than Light Cavalry, but as far as upgrades go, the two units are not that dissimilar at a glance. To get a sense of its importance, we're going to start by looking at how many town center arrows units can take with various combinations of the 3 major Imperial Age upgrades. The more arrows they can take, the longer enemy villagers need to be garrisoned, and the more likely you are to have your units last long enough to find good targets. Town centers have 9 attack, which is fairly similar to most archers, though I should note that elite skirmishers specifically deal 3 times as much damage to Hussars that are missing the final armor upgrade. So in that particular case, the effect of armor is greatly magnified. I'm also not going to worry about their ability against enemy spearmen or other melee units for our purposes here, as while that can be important, it's not at the heart of what I'm really trying to get at here, which is the classic late game rating of farmers. With that, starting at the bottom tier with the worst upgrade combination available, we have Light Cavalry not only missing bloodlines, but also the last 2 armor upgrades. Malay are of course the civilization with this dubious combo, almost being taken out by 1 fully garrisoned town center volley, and even going down to a single round of ungarrisoned castle fire. There's not too much to say here, the results I think speak for themselves. Moving on, the second worst Light Cavalry line unit you could have would be Light Cavalry missing bloodlines and the final armor upgrade. An example of a civilization with this unfortunate combo is the Bohemians or Dravidians, who take just 12 town center arrows, or less than 2 full rounds of firing. The next level above that is actually Hussar, missing bloodlines and the final armor upgrade, with Koreans or Celts as an example, who take 15 town center arrows. Already, this means Light Cavalry with either bloodlines or all armor are going to be better than Korean or Celt Hussar. The next level up is Light Cavalry with bloodlines but missing the last armor upgrade, Japanese being the example I'm personally most familiar with. They take 1 more arrow than bottom tier Hussar thanks to having 5 more HP. Moving up 1 level is the equivalent Hussar, missing the last armor but having bloodlines, of which Goths are an example. They take 19 arrows, which crosses an important threshold that they now take 3 fully garrisoned town center shots instead of 2. 1 level above that is Light Cavalry missing bloodlines but with all armor, an example of which is Britons, and the next is the same thing but the Hussar version, for example Burgundians, who of course don't have bloodlines on account of having Castle Age Cavaliers. 1 step above that is fully upgraded Light Cavalry, an example being Chinese, with the only thing they miss being the Hussar upgrade itself. And finally, at the top, we have fully upgraded Hussars, taking 32 arrows or 4 full rounds of town center fire, potentially even 5 if even just a single arrow misses. Now this list isn't something to memorize, but from it we can see some very clear patterns. The first big takeaway from this is that the Hussar upgrade itself is the least important of the 3 upgrades when it comes to surviving town center fire. And instead, cavalry armor is the best predictor of rating resilience, followed by bloodlines, and then Hussar is the lowest priority. I should note as well, ironically, it's also the most expensive of the 3. Remember, there is that pesky effect of plus 5% faster attack, and we will look at that a bit later, but when it comes to tanking arrows, which is incredibly important for rating, it seems that the final plus 2 pierce armor definitely comes first. Now these are just the generic tech tree options, but if you think about it, there's several extra civilization-specific bonuses and techs that can come into play. So with the outline of the general list finished, let's see where those specific cases would slot in. Starting with the most unimpressive of those unusual cases, we have the Poles with their winged Hussar. While they have a bit more HP and some area damage, they're lacking the final armor upgrade, and as such are pretty squishy when it comes to rating, landing on the same level as Britain Light Cavalry, which aren't exactly top tier. If you've noticed as Poles, your late game raiders tend to melt pretty quickly under defensive fire, that's not something you're imagining. The next level up has 3 mediocre variations, all squeezing between Britain Light Cavalry and Burgundian Hussars, taking 22 to 24 arrows. This includes Teuton Scouts, Frank Light Cavalry with 20% more HP but no bloodlines, and Mongol Hussar having 30% more HP but lacking the final armor. While this might seem like an overachievement for Teuton Scouts to be included as the only civilization lacking Light Cavalry, they do have bloodlines and armor, so they kind of hold their own. On the flip side, Mongols might seem surprisingly low in this pretty average tier given their extra HP, but it again emphasizes how important that last armor is. The situation Mongols benefit most in is melee battles, since the final armor only gives +1 melee armor as opposed to +2 pierce armor, so their HP more than compensates for what they lose in armor, but again, here we're speaking about just a rating context, where they're actually worse than Hussar missing bloodlines. This fills out everything up to generic fully upgraded Hussars, but there are in fact 4 civilizations who are even better at tanking arrows. The first 2 are Lithuanian Winged Hussars and Elite Magyar Hussars, which both take a couple of extra arrows by having 100 and 105 HP respectively, instead of the regular Hussars 95. While each comes with their own additional upfront cost, they end up as some of the tankiest Light Cavalry raiders in the game. I say some of and not the tankiest because that title is shared by Turks and Tatars, who both have +1 pierce armor in addition to all upgrades. These can fly a bit under the radar, as it's just an innocent looking +1, but means they take 50% more town center fire. Now, of course, this is just tankiness against town centers as a benchmark. The list is mostly similar against castles, though empty castles fire in bursts of 5, so many of these units take just 2 direct attacks regardless of upgrades, unless they're among the most elite we've seen. Now, while I consider tankiness the most important factor when raiding, as it guarantees more time to pick off villagers, forcing your opponent to garrison for longer, and just generally cause more chaos, now let's flip and look at their attack, specifically how many attacks you need to take out villagers, which is ultimately a main objective of raiding after all. Since Hussar and Light Cavalry have the same base attack, the simple rule here is regardless of what you have available, Blast Furnace lets you take out villagers in 4 attacks, while lacking Blast Furnace or forgetting to pick it up means you need 5 attacks. Teuton Scouts also need 5, meaning they might end up a little worse than Britain Light Cavalry after all, but are still tankier than expected. Good to know is that even forgetting Iron Casting hurts again, leading to another attack required to take out a generic villager with Loom. So the easy takeaway is when raiding, every attack upgrade counts, and will directly turn into 20% and then 25% greater efficiency when picking off villagers. This is partly why I don't think the Hussars plus 5% attack speed is actually all that significant, even if it is a nice piece of trivia. The final 2 attack upgrades are giving 4 and then 5 times that effect, and a Light Cavalry with Blast Furnace is always going to take out a villager significantly faster than a Hussar without, regardless of the faster reload time. Now, a notable civilization with better attack worth mentioning here quickly is the Bulgarians, with faster reloading on top of fully upgraded Hussars, who are probably the most consistent at quickly picking off villagers and deserve to be in the highest tier conversation. Here, Malians might also come to mind with 7+7 attack, but they actually end up taking out villagers in the regular 4 attacks, even with Farimba. So this is one of the rare cases where their extra attack leads to still a generic result. I go back to the idea though that I think tanking arrows is more important than attack when raiding, but together paint a picture of why Korean Hussars are just plain terrible, as they get the most expensive upgrade in the set with Hussar, but miss the more important cheaper defensive upgrades, and also miss Blast Furnace, so they take 25% longer to bring down villagers. Byzantines and Celts also come to mind in a similar bottom tier, as well as Vikings as one of the few civs to miss Husbandry on top of important upgrades. Speed is always hard to quantify, but is important for Hussar and Light Cavalry raids, giving a good argument for Cumans as one of the best, as they have all upgrades and are also slightly faster than other civilizations. Add in double creation speed with unique tech, and they're arguably up there with Tatars and Turks as the most annoying Hussar raids to deal with. So that's been a look at the various upgrades affecting late game cavalry raiding. While there's lots of other factors to think about if one were to attempt to rank all the light cavalry lines, including discounts, farming bonuses, faster working stables, etc., given the focus here was on the relative importance of upgrades, my main takeaway is first the importance of armor, bloodlines, and then Hussar in that order when available. And second, that every attack upgrade has a direct impact on how quickly you can pick off villagers, so you shouldn't skip out on the last one if you can help it. Also, those Teuton scouts, maybe not as bad at raiding as you thought. That'll do it for this deep dive though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.